Good morning, Charles. How are you?
Good morning, Dan. I'm well. How are you?
Very well. Thank you. Had a good weekend.
How was your weekend?
I'm sorry, say that again. Broke up a little bit.
How was
there.
your
What was it?
weekend?
Weekend was good. Weekend was really good. Yeah. Went out to Sanford and they had a little food truck festival. Went with the girlfriend and the puppy. Got a lot of attention. And she was really worn out. Walked down to the water. Walked along the water there, and so
Your girlfriend or your puppy?
Was quiet. Listen, both actually. I walked them both down to the water. And they were both quiet. They're both quiet overnight. So it was a win-win-win all around. Actually,
Nice.
Yeah. They have some ridiculous food trucks these days. I mean, with every possible. I mean, I had no idea how niche some of these food trucks have gotten, and I think that's kind of a good rule of thumb here. As we're both entrepreneurs, and anybody out there who's doing, who's looking to do, business. It's look at the food truck model for when you want to start a business here or do anything entrepreneurial as niche as you can get, because you are going to have just the very passionate people going, for your product if you can get it really niche and really a sharp, fine point to it, and great examples are these food trucks where it was, it was like, wow, it was Spartan. It was, one was called like a Spartan food truck or something like that. And it was, it was like breakfast foods that were like Greek breakfast foods or something like that. I mean, just
really,
yeah. I mean, really, really niche stuff. So, just made me think there.
Did you eat any of them? Did you find any good choices?
I was able to resist them all, actually.
Wow.
We ended up going to a mom and pop. There's an Irish pub restaurant, actually on one of the streets there, and not far from Hollaback's Cafe there, and went there for some food and had a fantastic corned beef sandwich with it was some sort of, it wasn't beer batter, but some sort of onion rings where it was like sweet. So it might've been like whiskey battered or something like, or bourbon battered. It was, I normally, when they say, the beer, the onion rings are beer battered, I don't taste any of the beer. I don't taste really anything special.
Right.
These were special and it was delicious. And the owner came out and she's like, thank you for sitting out here, because by sitting outside, you're bringing in more business, showing, and so the dog was really well behaved. So we had a really nice time and the food was fantastic. And it was kind of sad because there's really nobody inside the place, but I'd been there once before and remember there's some good food. So wanted to do that and kind of help support the local business in Sanford that are there all the time rather than going to the food truck. But there was, donuts and cupcakes and everything. Oh my,
I'm sure.
Yeah. But I know you don't like the sweet stuff, so
I was just looking at every Sunday Crumble Cookies releases a little Instagram story with what their flavors for the upcoming week's going to be, and thank goodness it's finally a week where I said, well, those look good, but I don't have to have any of those, so I could easily take a week off of Crumble, which. Over the holidays, man, it's like every single week there was at least one where I was like, well, I have to have that. I have to split that with the girlfriend. We have to try that one. Where this week's the first week where I was like, they look good, but nothing I have to absolutely, rush out and grab. So I'm happy about that. That's a good thing.
Do you feel like it's easier to say no to some of those treats when it's not the holidays? For me,
yes.
I do. I feel like, cause I get in the mindset of, oh, it's the holidays. For me, I get in that mindset where it's just, I want to have the sweet treats. I want to have, I don't know. It's just, I've been programmed.
Yeah. I would say it definitely, there is a, because your schedule is so different over the holidays, because you're going to have days off for Christmas and New Year's, and you're going to be traveling to visit friends or family. It feels like this time of the calendar isn't real, like the rest of the year is real. You know what I mean? So you're like, the normal rules don't apply to me right now. So I'm just going to do what I feel like doing. And Yeah, that was one of the things, I listened to in the sort of the conclusion chapter of Tiny Habits, where he talks about like when you're under pressure, and I would almost say this applies to both distress and eustress, both good, bad stress and good stress. When things feel volatile and you're not used to the situation, which we talked about that last week about, not having a routine that feels consistent, it's very hard to make those changes when you feel like you're in the middle, when life feels like a change. Then trying to implement changes is much more difficult.
Yeah, and absolutely, because again, when life changes, that it changes your environment, changes your context, changes your interaction with everything, and that's kind of now, if you're trying to like start up a habit here, that's kind of like now you've got a moving target, right? It's
Yep.
in terms of what you need to think about, what you need to plan for, all those things, make it really difficult. So, that's where, thinking about your habit and being okay using, just that starter step, or even
Right.
just remembering to do the habit, or saying, hey, not I should be doing the habit, but just remembering, hey, this is normally where I would do this push-up habit. And not doing so, perfect example. I wanted to try the push-up habit that, BJ talks about. And what I've been doing is after every time after I flush the toilet, I do, 2 push-ups. Well, a lot of times I'm running so late that I can't even do 2 push-ups. So instead I just kind of make a push-up movement. If I'm at home, I'm not in a public place, I just do push-up movement with my hands, and just kind of smile. Hey, yep, I remembered, and then move on. And I'm okay with that. And instead of, trying to find a place to do the push-ups. But I could see, if I was trying to do that while I was traveling, everything else, sometimes you just need to kind of look at yourself in the mirror. Hey, all right, this is where I should be doing 2 push-ups, and then feel good about that and move on. Hey, I haven't forgotten about,
Right.
the habit. And honestly, man, I've read this book a bunch of times, and it really wasn't until I went through this with you on the podcast where it really sunk in for me that there is value in remembering the habit, right? It's for me, I was so in the go big or go home mentality. It's like, well, if I'm not doing 20 push-ups at a time, it's a waste for me to even do this. But kind of talking to you about it and discussing getting into it, I can say I've honestly changed. I've honestly say, yeah, this is good. I feel good. I feel something. I feel good that I at least remembered, even if I'm not able to do it at the point or at the amount that I wanted to before. Because I will have that. I know in the future, you know what? Things aren't going to be as crazy. I won't be traveling. It's not going to be the holidays. Right. I will have that time in the future. It's just not right now. But at least I remembered.
Yeah, one of the things I find myself doing is asking myself and sort of just checking in very quickly and very informally to say, okay, is this aspiration that sort of put this whole process into into drive, does it still matter to me? And so far the answer has been yes. Like this, I'm still shooting for this. I still want to, at some point in the not too distant future, well, certainly before my birthday, but maybe even this summer, I want to be able to take off my shirt at the beach and see at least 6 little muscles on my stomach area smiling back at me. And then when you say, okay, yes, this is still important to me, then the question is, well, is it important enough to put my pants on, put my shoes on, go to the gas station the night before a trip and fuel up the car? And so far, the answer has been, yeah, if I remember to ask myself that question, is this still important enough to me to do this starter step? Then the answer is yes. And someday it may not be. The answer may be no. And then I have to, open up my recipes and decide, is the aspiration still important to me, but the starter step's too big or doesn't feel like it's, actually targeted enough in the right direction that I need to settle on a different one. Mm-hmm. But, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So far, when I take the time to think about it, or, when my prompt or my anchor, reveals itself and is strong enough, then it's pretty easy so far to say, yeah, this still, I can still do this. I still want to do this. And yeah, as long as I keep getting that answer, then I'll feel like I'm still on the right track.
Yeah. No, I think that's something that's really important to do. The other piece here, as I was kind of going through the chapters again, I think is trying to think about your identity in terms of, somebody in your mind that, has a six pack, what do you think, they do on a daily basis? What are the characteristics that make up somebody who has a six pack? Right. And so maybe that might help also identify some behaviors or habits you want to build, that would support that vision, right? So that you then start to go, okay, you know what? Person with a six pack probably does some crunches at least once a week, maybe a couple every couple days, something like that, right? Maybe that's something you want to look at doing, right? What do they choose when they eat? How do they go about their day? Things like that, and look for behaviors that might align with that, so that you can start shaping your identity to somebody that has a six pack. And that's really the key, I think, that makes it easy to get there and maintain. Because just like the same thing about, somebody offers you a drink. No, I don't drink. Right. Somebody offers you a cigarette. No, I don't smoke. Right. Because that's not your identity. Right. Same thing, which is, here's a gift certificate for free Crumble cookies for a year. No, thanks. I don't eat, I don't eat that many Crumble cookies. Right. Whatever it might be.
That would, if somebody wants to really derail me in this plan, just give me a gift certificate for free Crumble cookies for a year. And, I'd have to have a real, come to Jesus moment.
Right. And right. So, I mean, think about this, right? So if somebody offered you a gift certificate for free cigarettes for a year, that's a no-brainer, man.
Of course. Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, even in my mind, I don't have the passion for Crumble cookies the way you do, but I do love cookies, and they do make delicious cookies. I mean, even I don't eat them that often, but to offer free free Crumble cookies for a year, it makes me pause for a second. It's powerful stuff. Food is powerful stuff. So you got to find ways to support yourself. And so I would say, maybe look at some of the behaviors that you're doing, and maybe add a couple as well. And
for sure. Yeah.
And remember, these are recipes, so we need to change them up if they don't come out right.
Yeah. I was listening to, another book this morning on my walk. I did some of both, Tiny Habits and also, Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown. And, she was talking about one incident she had where she was given a speech, and she, earlier in her career, she would get invited to speak and not and kind of get blindsided by the person running the event when she shows up and it's like, okay, here's what I want you to talk about. And in this particular occasion, it was, talk about how to find joy, how to be happy, how to, have a pleasant life, things like that. And Brene was like, that's not really what I do. I'm more the person who talks about the things that we let get in the way of happiness and joy and stuff like that. And she talked about it with her husband, sort of looking back on it, because she was having some anxiety about a future talk where she's like, I never told you about this, but I had this talk like 5 years ago that I bombed because I showed up and the person gave me all these demands of, I want you to talk about how to do and how to have all these positive things. And she realized, no, I'm not the person that talks about that. I'm the person that talks about the things that get in the way of that. And then that led her into a topic on, the how-to book industry and the life coaching industry, where so much of it focuses on, hey, here's how to do whatever. And she's like, we all kind of know, we know how to eat well. We know how to go to the gym. We know how to do the things we want to do, but almost none of us are doing them because we don't like thinking about or talking about the things that get in the way. And that reminded me of what I like so much about Tiny Habits, where he does not gloss over or sugarcoat the challenge of the things that will get in the way of doing the things you want to do. One could say his book is mostly about encountering and sort of taking on these things that get in the way of behaviors that you want in your life.
Yeah, no, that's a great summary. Absolutely. Yeah. He starts with motivation because everybody's focused on that.
Right.
And that gets in the way of getting stuff done because you're thinking, oh, I just need to be motivated to do it. I don't, all of the, the things that the other pieces, it's like the tip of the iceberg, right? So You're looking at the tip of the iceberg, which is the motivation, which is the part above the water. And then without realizing underneath that the monster iceberg underneath is all the other things that need to go into being able to do that habit. So it's the prompt, it's the, your ability, it's how big the habit is or the behaviors, your environment, the time, the money, the tools, the information, like all of these things. And that, yeah, you're right. And what's great is he kind of pulls that water level down so you can see all of what's underneath that little tip that was outside of the water at that point and realize, hey, turn that thing upside down, really focus on the base there. And it's great because he kind of gives you specific steps and saying, okay, let's look at this element. Let's look at the time. Do you have enough time to do it? Do you have enough physical capability, mental capability, all these things. And so it really, it almost forces you to treat this like an experiment because, or a recipe, because you're almost immediately into troubleshooting mode because it's very precarious. That's the takeaway from what you just said. And from the book is, the behaviors that we're trying to craft when they're new, there's so many things that can get in the way. It's really becoming an expert at finding and then troubleshooting what's getting in the way of you being able to do this habit.
Yeah. And you and I have certainly experienced that in our careers too, where the best troubleshooters, whether it comes to technology or whatever, are not the people that are walking encyclopedias who know everything. It's the people who know what they don't know and know where to get answers. And there's so many guys in technology in particular that feel this identity of I already know everything is so much of a part of their career. And in a lot of cases that's why they stall out at a certain level, because they feel like they have to know everything. And, you never hear him say something like, holy cow, I've never seen that before. I have no idea what might be going on. And, I feel like I say that, I've been in it now 25 years, and once a week I'm seeing something that is completely different from, or at least different enough from anything I've seen before, where I'm like, all right, your problem as you're explaining it to me is nothing I've encountered before. So let's define the problem a little bit more, and then and then often it turns out to be a problem that is exactly something I've seen before, but the way they described it felt foreign, or it actually is foreign, and I need to go look up something that I've never looked up before.
Right. And the reason why you're confident with what you're doing is because you've got the skill set to identify the issue and know where to get the information from. Not that you have the information, but you have the skill of being able to fix something because you can diagnose and ask the right questions to get all the information that you need. And you also know where to go to get the resolutions and then implement them. And so the habits are exactly the same way, right? It's kind of funny because we think, oh, well, we should be able to, just go to the gym every single day for an hour. It seems so simple or whatever, but and that's why the book is great, because it kind of helps you build the skill set to go, okay, well, it's really not that simple. Let's, gives you the skill set to analyze what's going on with the behavior in general. So, even what to look for, and then, what questions to ask so you can diagnose when it's not going well, and then how to make adjustments and changes. And that's really, it's priceless experience that he's packed into this book. The experience of the wisdom of how to adapt to change.
Yeah. And that is what I found so valuable about it, which is, this process of trying to develop these new habits to reach this goal or this aspiration. things are going to happen where it doesn't go exactly according to plan. And so setting yourself up for, okay, when this doesn't work, what do I do? And when it does, even to the point of thinking, okay, when this doesn't work in a way that I cannot even predict it's not going to work, what do I do then? And, when you have almost literally a drawing board, meaning a collection of recipes that you can go back to, or golden behaviors, or your written out aspiration, when you have these things in place, then even when something goes wrong that you could not have possibly predicted going wrong, you can just go, okay, so this thing happened. I'm not able to continue on the way that I've been. Which step in the process do I have to go back to? And the bigger of a disruption it is, the closer to the beginning of the process you have to go to re-engineer things.
Yeah,
but you never have to go so back to just say, okay, I guess I just can't lose weight. I can't reduce body fat. I can't keep my apartment clean. Like, when you follow his method, there's no thing that happens that is so big, short of, a terminal illness diagnosis or a terrible accident or something like that. But there's nothing that's going to happen that's so big that you don't have some kind of an anchor to go back to and say, all right, got to rebuild from the ground up.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great point.
Yeah. So I've been blown away by this book. I've shared it with at least one person who's bought the audiobook and is going to go through it. And, it's hard to see this book online at a store or whatever without seeing, Atomic Habits as well. And I have not read it, so I know it's by James Clear. I haven't gone through it, but I imagine if it's successful at helping people, which, it has, because it's a, number one bestseller, just like this one is, I got to imagine there's a lot of overlap between the two, because there's got to be, there's only so many ways that you can tell people, all right, your intuition about what it takes to form habits is probably wrong. So let's break this down and see where you've gone wrong every other time in your life that you've attempted this. Yeah.
Atomic Habits is very similar. I actually read Atomic Habits first.
Okay.
And it's very similar in terms of the principles it talks about. It's just another way of saying them. That he uses different words, different vocabulary, and it's but it's not quite as it doesn't go as deep, I feel like, in terms of this book Tiny Habits could almost be used as like a manual or like a lesson plan for a class type of thing.
Sure.
And
yeah.
Atomic Habits is a little bit, it doesn't go quite as deep, I feel, but it does hit a lot of the same high and important points as Tiny Habits does. But the difference is Clear isn't a behavior design researcher, and he doesn't have thousands and thousands of people that he's worked with, and terms of coaching or conducted studies to kind of dig into things the way BJ has, but he has kind of summarized a lot of what BJ's, from BJ's work and some other habit and behavior design researchers. And it is entertaining. There are some great stories. It's definitely a good book. And maybe it's something at some point we can, we might want to go through on the podcast as well.
Yeah, I'm certainly open to that. And I would say that the takeaway from Tiny Habits is one of the main ones is just how wrong our intuition is for what it takes to make changes, right? So, I would say, look up books on habits on Amazon, and pretty much any of them in the top 5 or top 10, if they're successful, it's going to be because they teach you how to break the pattern of your own intuition about what's going to work for you and do something else instead. And it seems like, if you look at the statistics on diet and exercise and how many people this time of year are getting into something new, and how many people by the 9th of January have already abandoned their plans, the consensus or the conventional wisdom, it's not working for us. As a society, as a planet, as whatever, even more specifically as Gen X men who are, trying to get in shape or make better decisions for their health, what seems like a good idea to you just based on what you've been doing is probably not a good idea. So look outside yourself and go to, I mean, how many diets does one have to start and abandon to decide, okay, the next time I hear about a new diet, it's probably not going to be the one that I adopt and stick to for the rest of my life, because something about the way I'm adopting these new plans is not working for me.
Yeah. I think one of the key elements here, my takeaways from Tiny Habits, is that it's success that leads to more success, and it doesn't matter the level, the how much of a success. It's not like a big success, like you started a multi-million-dollar company type of success. It doesn't matter the size of that. It's just the fact that you feel successful in anything, right? And so one of the things that I like here is that where most programs, they are focused on the program itself, right? So going, do like a low carb diet, or, just join a Weight Watchers program or go to the gym, whatever that is. And then when things aren't working, you haven't learned any troubleshooting tools, right? Or skills. Right. And so what happens then is you're like, oh, well, the program doesn't work. Right. And, or I'm just not motivated, or it doesn't work for me, whatever. And then you give up. Right. So now you're getting a failure right away. Whereas Tiny Habits, he emphasizes, okay, well, let's look at what's not working. Let's try to fix it. And let's try it again, or let's make an adjustment and try it again. And then you keep doing that. And so instead of just like giving up and saying I'm a failure, right, and not feeling successful at all, you're going back, you're troubleshooting, you're making an adjustment, and then maybe you're getting a little bit of a win. Maybe it works a couple of times. So you're feeling, now you've got you've got a couple of successes. Yes, it failed because it didn't work the first time, right? But when you go back, because you've been taught to go back and taught to try again, you eventually get some of those little successes, you get those little wins, and then that starts to really kind of help build your confidence, build your competence, and build your confidence. And now you're willing to deal with a little bit more failure. I feel like because you're feeling better, and you're feeling, hey, look, you know what? Even though I failed last time, I was able to go back and make some changes, and now I'm successful. And so I think that's really the key here is with this book, is that it really kind of gets you in that mindset of let's not give up. Let's not give up.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting where when you read this book and you think about the nature of failure a little bit more, and we'll stick with the example of a diet because it's something that everybody can probably relate to. There's so much of your own personal psychology that goes into the mix when you try a new diet, whether it's Atkins, South Beach, keto, paleo, call it carnivore, whatever it is, and then it doesn't work out and you end up going off the rails and abandoning it. What's the reason that you do that? Well, in some cases you're going to say I failed because I'm a failure. In some cases you're going to say I failed because the plan is a failure. And you're probably wrong in both of those cases, where what Tiny Habits lets you do is say, all right, this is an experiment. Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's change one variable, and then we'll try it again, and we'll see whether it fails or it succeeds. And okay, well, second time it failed again, but it failed for a different reason. It didn't fail as bad. So now let me go back and change another variable. And this idea of dispassionately being able to stand back from your behaviors in a way where you can analyze them and tweak them and improve on them, instead of tying absolutely everything to your identity as a winner or a loser. It just lets the pressure off. Which, I mean, we're living knee deep in a hustle culture and a perfectionism culture right now, where everything you attempt, you have to do the right way the first time, or you can be embarrassed, or people will see you on social media and see that you tried something new and failed. And there's just so many disincentives for trying new things and experimenting. It's nice to have BJ Fogg telling you, no, it's okay to try something, fail at it, and then tweak it and try again.
Yeah. And ironically, that, I see that process of you wanting to go back and try again. That's a very dependent on motivation as far as I'm concerned. And right, there's really no prompt. There's really, he's giving you the ability with the book, right? As much as possible. Right. He's trying to make it as simple as possible. He's giving you the ability, but the prompt is really, the failure happening. And at that point, you got to really kind of rely on your motivation to to go back and be willing to make that change, right? And so that's why the initial aspiration, that objective,
Right.
your goal, whatever you want to call it, is so critically
better pick
important.
a solid one. Yeah, you better pick a solid one.
Right, because otherwise you're going to give up on wanting to go back and make those changes, because you're like, and if you're feeling that way, then that's an indicator. Hey, maybe we need to look at your aspiration a little bit and either find ways to help you remind yourself of what that is, or reevaluate and say, hey, maybe we need to pick something different to work on that's a little bit more meaningful to you.
Yeah, I saw a post on Reddit this week that did motivate me a little bit, because it was a guy who said, just to people in general, hey, look, holidays are over. It's the beginning of the new year. You're going to hear in a few months, you're going to hear a lot of talk about your summer beach body. It's like by the time people start talking about it, it's too late. Now's the time to get serious about it. You've got 5-6 months before you're in the middle of summertime, and now's the time to think about it. Not April or May. Now is when if you want to make a change, and you want to do it at a scale that is reasonable and not pushing you and not setting yourself up for failure. Beginning of January is when you start thinking about the beach body.
Yeah, it's tough for most people. I think every year, because a lot of us end up kind of relaxing come between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and in terms of our discipline and our eating habits and things like that.
Yeah.
And so you are often starting out, if you can start out in January, you've probably gained a few pounds between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And, and so now you are already, probably a little bit of a heavier weight than before the holidays. So, you might have a tendency to want to really have this tendency to go big or go home, because you want to kind of make up for what you put on over the last couple of months. And so it makes it extra difficult to stay tiny, I feel, and to not want to do something extreme.
Yes. Yeah, that's and the longer you wait, the more that temptation begins to overpower you of, okay, I've got to go on a crash diet. I've got to go on the hard boiled egg diet. I've got to fast for, a week, those kind of things, which, there could be a place and time for all of those things. And, that's one of the things I learned very young when all these diet books started coming out. Most of them were low/no carb based. I had a conversation with my boss at the time about him. He was like, you know what, you want to know the trick? Here's the trick. They all work if you can stick with them. And that's pretty much 100%. The case. I mean, if 100%. any book that, a publishing company is willing to publish about a diet, there's probably enough background that says, yes, this diet can work. It's just, is this a diet you can live with for a decade?
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases, the answer to that is no, because people are just reading a book and rolling the dice on their motivation and hoping that their motivation 10 years from now will be as strong as it is today. And that almost never works out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of these diets too, they don't break it down and tell you how to implement the diet in your life. Right.
Right.
So, it's just like, oh, well, just, stop eating carbs, and then it's just like, okay, well, what if, what if you've got kids in the house and, you can't get rid of, graham crackers and they won't, cookies or whatever, or you don't want to have that argument on top of trying to start a new diet. Like, yeah, the kids don't need that by any means, but now you're introducing something that's going to make your behavior more difficult to do, because, if you get rid of that stuff, it'll make it easier for you because you're not going to have the temptation, but you might now have arguments with your family members and, having crying and yelling kids in the house because you got rid of their desserts. And so that's an element to have to deal with in and of itself. So again, it just, just like, the tiny habits will ripple out, the any change that you make doesn't exist in isolation. Right. And it's going to affect other things, and they might come boomeranging back at you in a negative way. And you need to be able to have the skill set to handle that. Right. And that's why this book is great, because it's going to give you that skill set to handle that stuff.
Yeah. And tell me if you noticed this too, but pretty much every diet book is a fairly standard formula of success stories, a little bit of science, then a shopping list and some recipes. And that's pretty much it. All of them are the same thing. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing in there that says, very few of them, none that I've read have anything to say, okay, if you decided that if you break down and you go for 2 weeks completely off the reservation and you go crazy and you just eat whatever you want to do, here's how you can come back to this diet 2 weeks later and not feel like a piece of crap and be able to, roll right back into where you were. Yeah. And that kind of resilience to both failure and shame doesn't move books in the diet industry, from what I can tell. So very few of them, get into that. They just assume 100% compliance and, or maybe point you back toward one of the success stories that you might identify with. Just read this again, and whereas this book, it's the thing I love about it is it's so foundational because you can apply it to anything. And so it's like, why aren't we, why didn't I take a semester of Tiny Habits in high school or college? Because it wasn't written yet, but you know what I mean? It's like, if I had a kid, I would certainly be making this part of their curriculum to say, hey, look, at some point in your life, you're going to want to start doing something that you're not currently doing. And here's how you go about that.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we have sung the praises of BJ Fogg for a number of weeks now. And I hope people buy it. We'll have to keep the accountability going. I'll have to get back on our show's Instagram account and share some of my successes and failures as
that would be great
as we work through this winter, spring, summer, fall season. And by November 20th, I hope to have a version of myself that I can proudly show off on our show's Instagram. All right, so let's briefly talk about what we're doing next and introduce the next book. And what I will probably do is edit this second part of the podcast as a separate little bonus episode we can put out there to say, hey, here's what we're going to talk about next. And sorry, my Google Home started talking to me. Hold on, let me go turn that off. I'll be right back.
Yeah, no worries.
I have no idea what I would have said that she would have mistaken that I was talking to her. But anyway, so yes, we're going to talk about our upcoming book, which is called Atomic Attraction by Christopher Canwell. The subtitle is The Psychology of Attraction. And Dan and I were just talking a little bit this morning about what this is going to look like and how we're going to divide it up and how we're going to talk to you folks about this. So this is a book Dan and I read probably about a year ago, I would say. Mm-hmm. And, we looked at several of the books on dating and relationships from and for a man's perspective. And man, if you want to read about dating, or even more grossly put, how to get girls, there is no shortage of books out there to find instruction and theory on that topic. But man, so many of them are quite cringy in my experience. And there's even some parts in this one where I was like, ugh, that's a little, I don't know if he's on the mark with some of this advice. But I found this to be the most practical book out there on how to be a more attractive person. Specifically in romantic situations, and this book is pretty much from the perspective of heterosexual men looking to attract heterosexual women. But I think there could be broader application than that. That's what Dan and I are familiar with. That's what we know, and that's what the author was looking to do. But I think a lot of the principles listed here could apply to same-sex relationships as well, and especially the part we're going to talk about first in our first episode or two about becoming attractive and the attributes that and not just physical. I mean, there will be an emphasis on the physical, but not just physical attributes that people tend to find attractive in men. And so that's where we're going to to be starting. So we're looking about breaking it into about 8 episodes. And the 4 parts of this book are: number 1, become attractive; number 2, create attraction; number 3, build attraction; and number 4, maintain attraction. So really, wherever you are in your current relationship, whether you're single, whether you're with someone, whether you're with someone and trying to troubleshoot some problems in that relationship, there's I can't think of a downside in whatever professional or personal relationship you're in to being and feeling more attractive than you do today.
100%. Yeah, I think
so. We're going to go through this book. It's available on, Amazon, Audible, all the places that we usually find books. And I would encourage you to take a look at it. And, like so many books that Dan and I have covered, the name of the game is read it, keep the good, throw away the bad, and figure out how you can apply these things to be a little bit better version of yourself than you are right now. And I mean, it's only the second time that I'm going to be going through it, and I plan on doing some of those things as well. I'm going to review this book, and I'm going to think, okay, here's some areas where I don't do this as much as I should. I should do this a little bit more. I should do this a little bit less. And at the end of it, I will hopefully be a more attractive partner to the relationship I'm already in.
Yeah, I listen. I remember this book was chock full of great information, and I know that I definitely absorb maybe, I don't know, 10 to 15% of anything that I'm reading the first time, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And when I say absorb, I mean like incorporate into my life,
Right.
I might remember a little bit more than that, but in terms of actually incorporating it. So I'm definitely happy to go through this again, because I remember it did leave a pretty good impression on me in terms of, the messages and the way he phrased things, and very specific issues that the reason I one of the reasons I like this is because he basically lists a bunch of issues that, probably all of us have experienced at least some of these issues at some point, or had these questions at some point, and he addresses so many of them in a really straightforward way. So it's great the way that he breaks it up as well. And I'm excited to be able to, refresh my memory and implement some of these things, just the way you said, Charles, in my life. And I'm excited to go through this again.
Yeah. And again, standard disclaimer, at least standard for us, Dan and I have no interest in venturing into the pickup space or even the red pill space of men talking about women in relationships. I find that those are tiresome, and really I'm not interested in learning any techniques or tips or passing them along that involves anything resembling pretend to be somebody you're not to get something that you probably shouldn't have in the first place.
Yeah, it's not gonna last. That's not.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I loved about both No More Mr. Nice Guy and Dating Essentials for Men by Dr. Robert Glover, where he's like, I am not teaching you in any of these books to be someone else. I'm not even teaching you to be a better version of yourself. All I want to teach you to do is to be more authentic and be more who you are and who you want to be. And then, really once you decide that that's a course that is worth pursuing, the people that are attracted to you and find their way into your life are going to be the people you should be around. And that certainly applies for dating relationships. Be more comfortable with being the person you really are. And people who are attracted to that are the ones that you should want to have around.
Yeah. And, all of these books that we go through, I think one of the biggest elements here is that it helps you really get to know yourself better. It brings up your self-awareness. So how can you possibly really know how to get to a different place in any aspect of your life if you don't know where you're starting from? And for me personally, reading these books have made me think about myself and my own behaviors and how I interact with the world and how I think about myself and who I am and what my desires are, what my needs are, all of these things. They kind of bring it up to the surface level so that I can actually think through them. And then I can take the information that they're giving me and go, okay, well, I'm here. I want to be here. And how do I get there at this point? So for me, it's really kind of just raised my self-awareness in a few areas, not as many as I'd like at some point. And I'm still working on it, but it does make me feel good when I'm able to get to know myself better. It makes me feel better about myself, gives me a little bit more confidence because I know myself better, and rather than just kind of floating through the world or floating through life and not really being solid or knowing myself. And that's me. I know other people, are really know themselves. They know what they want. These people who, when they were, going into college or, graduating high school, and they knew exactly what major they wanted, what job they wanted. I've always been jealous of that because I've never had that specific type of pinpointed drive in one direction. And so I changed my major 4 times in college and I ended up graduating with something that I didn't, that I didn't even, I'm not even using now. So I've been all over the place. So that, and this book is no different in terms of, just kind of bringing awareness to, things like, how do you dress? What kinds of, scents do you use, on your body for like cologne and stuff like that? A number of different things that, you may just not have thought that much about or didn't realize how they impacted the people and the world around you. Right. So those are all interesting ways to stop and just it makes you kind of stop and pause and think about those things. And when you think about those things, I think you have an opportunity to make some changes if you wanted to.
Yeah. And like, and some of this stuff will sound unintuitive. Like, I don't think that's the way men work, women work, relationships work. And, it's hard to overstate the amount of messaging that everyone gets, but in particular men get about what we're supposed to be and how we're supposed to be, from our messages from our family, from society that says, this is what a guy does, this is what's attractive, this is what you're supposed to be or how you're supposed to act. And really, the point of this is, here are some tools to help you, like Dan said, discover who you are and be more comfortable being who you are. And, maybe you'll learn about a new hairstyle or a new place to hang out where you might meet a potential mate that still allows you to be who you are, but just allows you to also think about these interactions in a way that you haven't thought about them before. Mm-hmm. And so we're not going to be coming out here telling you to be somebody else. We're going to hopefully help you get more comfortable being who you already are and learning new ways to have fun and enjoy relationships and get out there and be exposed to people that you haven't before. So and again, if you're already in a relationship, I think going through this book with us and hearing our experiences can make you a better partner. So we're, this is not a pickup course, and this is not a dump your wife or girlfriend and find somebody better course. This is a become a better man who's better at interacting with people and better at enjoying and appreciating his own life, and watch how much of a better life you get as a result of that.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that what you just said, Charles, is a great summary of our podcast in general, right? I hope so. Right. It's not, none of these are to say that, you need to, do anything to where you're, becoming something that you're not. It's all of this stuff is about personal development, right? So, yeah. All of these things that we're going through, these books that we're going through, really, our intent is to, help you solve some problems that you have. And if some of those problems are, I'm not happy in this area of my life, or I wish I could be doing this better, we're just hoping that we say things in a way or present some sort of information in a way that that resonates with you and that helps. And that's really what I think this podcast is all about.
Yeah. And remember that work happens inside of you. If you're miserable in your given set of circumstances right now, whether it's your current relationship, your current career, whatever. If you just change to a new relationship or a new career, but you don't do any work internally, you're just going to find yourself miserable in that new career and that new relationship as well. Mm-hmm. Where books like this, we hope, Tiny Habits and Atomic Attraction, can give you the ability to make yourself better in your current circumstances and more satisfied and have a more meaningful life and more meaningful connections. And then, maybe you carry that to a new career, a new relationship. Maybe you just learn to appreciate the career and relationship you're in better and be better at those things. And either way, I consider that a win. So that's our goal, and that's what we're looking for ourselves and looking to share with our listeners.
Well said. Well said.
All right, so we will. Let's see. I got a busy week coming up. Today's Monday. I leave on Wednesday for New York City. I'll be up there through Saturday, and I am planning on getting into this material and maybe sharing some snippets of some of the greatest hits that I revisit from this book while I'm on the road this week. So Dan and I are both planning to have a more active social media presence this year. So keep your eyes peeled for that. We're not at the point where we're making promises about what to expect and how often to expect it, but you'll see more than you saw at the end of last year for sure.
That sounds great. So how far do you want to go for the next podcast in the book here? Should we stop at, is penis size important, or maybe go to a seductive voice, which I had to throw that out there. Where do you want to? What do you cover?
Well, now we have to go at least as far as, is penis size important, that you brought it up. And I'll just say right now, it's not important to me. It can be, you could have any size you want. It doesn't matter to me. But yeah, we will cover part 1, Become Attractive, in at least 2 parts, maybe more. Part 1 of this book is about 50 pages. And Dan and I were just talking before we started recording how, one of our previous books, we had chapters that were going 60, 70, 80 pages. And that felt like too much to cover in one of our episodes.
Right.
So this one is 50 pages. I'm going to go through it, see how it flows, see how easily it'll be for Dan and I to sort of switch gears and go from one topic to another. But I think we will probably split it into at least 2 parts, maybe more than that. And, and hopefully, have some good supplemental material for our Patreon and our social media to share about these things.
Yeah, sounds good.
Again, Atomic Attraction by Christopher Canwell. It's our next book. Download it, check it out from the library, buy it on Amazon, get it on Audible. Another good option that I've used before is eBay. Sometimes you can find libraries getting rid of books for dirt cheap on eBay. So if you don't want to spend that much money, I think I got this one used from a store on Amazon. My hard copy. I've also got it on ebook and audio, but my hard copy I remember getting pretty inexpensively on Amazon, used. But when it got to my place, it looks like it's in brand new condition. So Amazon and eBay are both usually pretty good about rating the condition of their books. And so if they say that it's, very good or like new, I don't hesitate to grab them, and I've never been disappointed. So we don't want you to break the bank being a member of our audience and our book club. But if you're doing a podcast on the book, I highly recommend getting a physical copy that you can put notes in and highlight and write up. But for everybody else, the Audible book, I remember it being a good listen. And certainly I'm a big fan of ebooks as well. But get a copy however you like to get a copy, and go through it with us, and we'll start on it a week from today.
Sounds good, sir. Anything else for today?
Nope, I'm pretty good. I'm spending the day doing some stuff around my RV, some of the RV specific maintenance that one has to do when they live in one full time. Today I'm defrosting my refrigerator, which I forgot how nice it is to have a frost-free residential sized refrigerator, but I've been doing this for going on 5 years now, and every couple months I have to defrost it and take all the stuff out and deal with that, which is a minor inconvenience, but certainly it it's worth it given how much I enjoy this moving around nomadic RVer experience. So yeah, I'm doing some of the stuff that one has to do, but it would be, if it wasn't this, it'd be mowing a lawn or replacing a hot water heater. So it's always something.
Yep. Can't
what are you up to the rest of the day today, Dan?
Just working on building the my Tiny Habits coaching program. Putting together a couple of options at this point to present to my coach and you and a few other people, get some feedback on. So I'm gonna be focused on that for the rest of the day. And
you ready to start having people reach out to Dan at mindfullymasculine.com if they're interested in using you to help them generate some new habits?
Yeah, absolutely. I am ready. I'm ready for that. Yeah, definitely.
All right, cool. And I'm excited for what you're able to pull off and what among our listeners and friends will be able to benefit from your expertise in this area. I know it certainly benefited me as we spent the last couple months going through the book. All right, great. Well, we are closing the door on Tiny Habits. I'm sure not closing it entirely because, again, you can apply this to so many things. I'm sure every book we review from this point going forward, we're going to be able to say, "Ooh, there's a tiny habit recipe that could help with that."
Yep.
And I'm excited about that. All right, great. Dan, have a terrific day, and I will talk to you next week, if not sooner.
Sounds good, sir. Have a good one.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.